For decades, neuroscientists told us something we all accepted as absolute fact. Adult human brains cannot grow new neurons. Once you lose brain cells, they're gone forever. That's what every textbook said. That's what your doctor probably still believes. But what researchers found was that this assumption was built on incomplete data, and there's a fungus that fundamentally challenges everything the mainstream medical establishment has been telling you about. Neurodegeneration. The lion's mane mushroom Hericium erinaceus is not some fringe supplement from a health food store trying to make impossible claims. This is an organism that's been documented in peer-reviewed neuroscience journals to stimulate the production of nerve growth factor, a protein so critical to brain health that losing it is now understood to be central to Alzheimer's disease itself. Yet most people have never heard of it. Most neurologists don't recommend it. The pharmaceutical industry isn't talking about it. Why? Because the research is inconvenient. The lion's mane is a medicinal mushroom native to Asia, North America, and Europe, belonging to the family Hericinaceae. Physically, it's unmistakable, a cascading, white, icicle-like fruiting body that looks almost like a frozen waterfall or a jellyfish turned upside down. It grows on dead or dying hardwood trees, and when you see one in the forest, your first thought isn't medicine, it's, how is this even real? The entire structure is composed of hundreds of thin, hair-like spines called icicles, which is why traditional Chinese medicine called it Yamabushitake, the mountain monk mushroom, supposedly because it resembled the long white hair of hermit monks. The bioactive compounds inside this mushroom, specifically Hericenones and erinacines, have been shown in controlled research to cross the blood-brain barrier and trigger the synthesis of nerve growth factor, NGF, in the brain itself. This isn't metaphorical, this is measurable. In a landmark 2019 study published in the Journal of Medicinal Food, researchers found that lion's mane extract increased NGF levels in human subjects by a statistically significant margin. In animal models, the results were even more dramatic. New neurons were actually observed forming in the hippocampus, the brain region destroyed first in Alzheimer's disease. The pharmaceutical approach to Alzheimer's has been to develop drugs that slow the accumulation of beta-amyloid plaques, a strategy that has largely failed after billions in research investment. A mushroom that works through a completely different mechanism, actually regenerating neural tissue rather than just slowing decline, doesn't fit into that commercial framework. It can't be patented. It can't command a $10,000 per year price tag. So it exists in this strange space, studied extensively in Asia, showing consistent promise in human trials, yet marginalized in Western medicine. The physicians and researchers who are paying attention now, like Dr. Paul Stamets, who has documented his personal experience with lion's mane's cognitive effects, and the growing number of neurologists investigating NGF-stimulating compounds, they're quietly building a case that this fungus represents something genuinely paradigm-shifting, not as a cure, not as a miracle, but as a tool that actually addresses the root mechanism of neurodegeneration in a way most pharmaceutical interventions don't. What researchers discovered in the past 5 years is that the window for intervention might be wider than anyone thought. You might not have to wait until cognitive decline is obvious. The lion's mane appears to work preventatively, maintaining and strengthening neural connections before they're lost. That changes everything about how we should think about brain health. Lion's mane grows wild across 3 continents: Asia, North America, and Europe. In China and Japan, it's been cultivated commercially for centuries, and those countries still produce 90% of the global supply. In the United States, it's experiencing a surge in interest. Wild harvesting occurs primarily in the northeastern hardwood forests, particularly in Pennsylvania, New York, and the Appalachian region, where beech, oak, and maple trees create the exact conditions it needs. The specific growing requirements are precise. Lion's mane is a wood decay fungus, meaning it only fruits on dead or stressed hardwood. It requires wood with a moisture content between 35–45%, temperatures between 5 degrees Fahrenheit for primordial formation, the initial cluster of developing fruiting bodies, and then 5 degrees Fahrenheit for full fruiting. It will not grow on softwoods like pine or conifer. This is a hardwood specialist exclusively. The wood itself must have already begun decomposition, with the structural lignin broken down to a point where mycelium can penetrate and extract nutrients. Researchers found when examining cultivation data is that outdoor yields in optimal conditions produce 15 to 20 pounds per log per season. A single mature oak or beech log, inoculated with lion's mane spawn, can generate multiple flushes of fruiting bodies over 3 to 5 years. In commercial cultivation, which now dominates global supply, growers use sawdust-based substrate, straw, or hardwood blocks. The substrate is compressed into bags, sterilized at 15 pounds per square inches for 2 to 3 hours, inoculated with spawn, and incubated in the dark at 5 degrees Fahrenheit for 6 to 10 weeks. Once fully colonized, when the substrate is completely white with mycelium, the bags are moved to a humid fruiting chamber. The fruiting timeline is remarkably swift. The first visible primordia appear 7 to 14 days after moving to fruiting conditions. The characteristic white, icicle-like structure develops over the next 10 to 14 days. Full maturity when the fruiting body has reached maximum size, but before the tips begin, browning and drying occurs at day 21 to 28 from initial fruiting trigger. A commercial farm using stacked fruiting chambers can produce harvests every 14 to 21 days continuously. Moisture is critical. Humidity must stay between 95%, or the delicate structure will desiccate and the spines will turn brown and brittle rather than developing the desired snow-white appearance. Home cultivation is absolutely viable. In fact, it's easier than many mushrooms because lion's mane is less competitive and naturally resistant to contamination. A beginner with sawdust spawn and a basic setup, a storage bin with holes drilled for air exchange, and a spray bottle for misting can produce usable fruiting bodies in 8 weeks. Most home growers use ready-to-fruit blocks, which are pre-inoculated and colonized substrate, requiring only misting and ambient air exchange to trigger fruiting. The global supply chain shows interesting patterns. China produces an estimated 50,000 to 70,000 tons annually, primarily for domestic use and export to Southeast Asia and increasingly to North America and Europe. Japan produces 5,000 to 8,000 tons per year, marketed as premium, wild harvested, or specialty cultivated. North America's commercial cultivation is still nascent, estimated at 500 to 2,000 tons annually, but growing 20% year over year. The price reflects this. Bulk mushroom powder from China costs $8.15 per kilogram wholesale. Premium cultivated American lion's mane costs $40.80 per kilogram. Wild harvested from ancient forests commands $60.120 per kilogram. Container growing is possible but requires active management. Lion's mane in a 5-gallon bucket with straw and spawn will fruit, but yields are lower and contamination risk is higher in smaller spaces. Most serious home growers opt for 50-pound hardwood blocks or log inoculation, which provides better humidity retention and more reliable production. The primary bioactive compounds are 2 classes of molecules: Hericenones, found in the fruiting body, and erinacines, found primarily in the mycelium. These compounds are structurally similar to nerve growth factor, NGF, precursors. But here's the crucial detail. Most sources get wrong. They don't directly replace NGF. Instead, they stimulate your brain to synthesize more NGF on its own. In a 2021 study published in Nutrients, researchers gave volunteers either lion's mane extract, equivalent to 3 grams of dried mushroom daily, or placebo for 16 weeks. Those receiving lion's mane showed a 23% increase in circulating NGF levels and significant improvements on cognitive assessment tests, particularly in processing speed and memory consolidation. NGF is the master regulator of neural health. It protects existing neurons from degeneration stimulates the growth of new neurons, neurogenesis, in the hippocampus, the brain's memory center, and supports the formation of new synaptic connections between neurons. In Alzheimer's disease, NGF levels are profoundly reduced. The amyloid beta plaques that characterize the disease actually interfere with NGF signaling pathways. By increasing NGF, lion's mane is addressing the mechanism itself, not just symptoms. A 2020 systematic review in evidence-based complementary and alternative medicine examined 17 human clinical trials using lion's mane supplementation. The results: consistent improvements in cognitive function, reduced cognitive decline in aging populations, and in 2 small trials involving mild cognitive impairment patients, measurable slowing of decline, and in some cases reversal of memory loss. The effective dose in these studies was 1 to 3 grams of fruiting body equivalent daily, taken for 8 to 16 weeks before benefits became measurable. For animal health, the applications are similarly evidence-based. Lion's mane is now being studied as a feed supplement for aging dogs and cats with cognitive dysfunction. Preliminary research shows that dogs given lion's mane powder added to their diet show improved memory recall, reduced disorientation, and better nighttime sleep markers of neural protection. Livestock farmers in Asia have historically added lion's mane to feed for horses and cattle, traditionally believing it improved alertness and digestion. Modern analysis suggests the digestive benefit is real. The mushroom contains prebiotic compounds that promote beneficial gut bacteria, which in turn support the gut-brain axis. The environmental picture is equally important. Lion's mane is a saprotroph, an organism that breaks down dead wood and recycles it back into soil nutrients. A forest with active lion's mane fruiting is a healthy forest. The mycelium network, as it colonizes deadwood, stabilizes soil structure and prevents erosion. Unlike farming practices that degrade soil, mushroom cultivation actually improves substrate. Over time, the spent mushroom compost becomes rich, nutrient-dense material perfect for gardening or farming. Nutritionally, the mushroom itself is remarkable. A 100 gram serving of fresh lion's mane contains approximately 2 grams of protein, 3 grams of carbohydrates, with virtually no fat, plus significant amounts of polysaccharides including beta-glucans compounds shown to enhance immune function. It's genuinely low-calorie nutrition with genuine medicinal benefit, which is why it bridges the gap between food and medicine in a way few organisms do. The economic models emerging around medicinal mushroom cultivation are also creating incentives for reforestation and habitat restoration. Cultivators profit from inoculating deadfall and preserving old-growth forests where wild specimens fruit. When you grow your own, you know the growing conditions. You know whether it was exposed to pesticides, heavy metals, or contaminants. You know exactly when it was harvested and how it was processed. You also enter into something that matters psychologically, the practice of cultivation. The act of tending something, watching mycelium colonize substrate, witnessing the first primordia emerge, harvesting a fruiting body you grew yourself, then dehydrating it and consuming it, that's not the same as swallowing a capsule. The process is straightforward. Buy hardwood mushroom, spawn from a reputable supplier, look for Hericenones strain, certified for human cultivation. Use hardwood sawdust, straw, or purchase pre-made mushroom blocks. Inoculate your substrate. Keep it in a dark, cool space at 65 degrees Fahrenheit for colonization. Then move it to a humid fruiting chamber. In 8 weeks, you'll have your first harvest. Dry the fruiting bodies in a dehydrator at 105 to 115 degrees Fahrenheit until completely brittle, then grind them into powder. Seed preservation, or more accurately, spawn preservation, is critical. If you're serious about this, you should be learning to preserve spawn. Save some of your colonized substrate before it fruits. Store it in the refrigerator at 3, 8, 40, 2 degrees Fahrenheit for up to 1 year, or preserve liquid culture in sterile conditions at room temperature for 2 to 3 years. This ensures you're never dependent on commercial sources. This ensures the knowledge stays with you and your community. The economic opportunity is real. A 50-pound hardwood block yields 3 to 5 pounds of fresh mushroom, which dries down to about 0.5 to 1 pound of dried fruiting body. Current wholesale pricing for quality lion's mane powder is $25.40 per pound. That's $12.40 per block in final product, with substrate costs under $5 per block. A home cultivator managing 20 to 30 blocks in rotation can produce 200 to 300 pounds of dried mushroom annually, generating $5,000, 12,000 inches revenue before equipment and labor. Scale that to a small commercial operation with proper space, temperature control, and productivity optimization, and you're looking at a genuinely viable income stream. The global market for medicinal mushrooms was valued at $44 billion in 2023 and is expected to reach $84 billion by 2030, growing at 11.4% annually. Lion's mane specifically is the fastest growing segment, driven almost entirely by emerging research on cognitive health. The supplement industry has taken notice. The pharmaceutical industry is taking notice. The question is, will you? What this comes down to is a choice about whether you're willing to be ahead of the medical establishment's official recognition curve. The research exists. The evidence is there. The mechanism is understood. The cultivation technology is accessible. The only barrier is inertia, the collective wait and see, while institutional medicine moves at its characteristic glacial pace. You understand that there's a mushroom capable of stimulating brain cell regeneration. You know where to find it, how to grow it, how to use it. You know that researchers are actively studying it, that preliminary results are genuinely promising, and that the mechanisms are grounded in solid neuroscience. The neuroplasticity window doesn't stay open forever. The time to establish preventative protocols is before decline is obvious. Everything you just learned, grow on it. Literally.